So it's all being recorded. Then I will caption it after that and disseminate or distribute the content through the university's. It's a platform that they now have called TechSmith. TechSmith does collect data on who looks at the videos. I do run analytics on each lecture, so I am reviewing who is reviewing the lectures. So unlike in the past where I really haven't had that information, I'm now going to have that information. So I am going to run analytics on daily lectures. I'm going to see who's been viewing this content and who's not. And I'm going to try to collect some additional data on that activity. All right. Agenda for today. Primarily, we're going to be going over the syllabi, the operations, and procedures for this class. Two applications that are really, really important for this class are the Connect application as well as SimNet SimGrader. The Connect application is important because you will have Learn Smart lessons that you have to do with each chapter. So if you go under Learning Modules, there will be 3 exams. There will be some Learn Smart modules, and you see here, wow, that's a little different. That looks different from my view that I have, that I work off of with when I'm in edit mode. Oh, that's a little different. So you will have to pay attention when you go into these modules. You'll notice the pages over here. Let me get my pen out. I need to be able to write. Okay, well, I guess, oh, there it is. I was wondering where I have a little writing pen that I have, and I couldn't find it. Okay, so here you see the pages 1 of 2 there. I'm going to move that up a little bit. There we go. So you want to be sure and navigate to the next page, because there's going to be a number. Some of these modules are going to have more than 2 pages. They're going to have some of them actually have up to 5 pages. So a little different there. But you have Learn Smart modules associated with each one of these chapters, and once you get your account established in Connect, you should be able to, you'll only have to log in once, and then I have Connect and Blackboard married here. So this is the registration page. So you enter in your USC Upstate email, and it takes you through a registration process. At some point, you're either asked to enter in a license number, or you can, I believe, procure or purchase a license number in that process. So you can buy the Connect license online, or you can buy it at the bookstore. Now, the Connect license and the SimNet license are not the same. The SimNet SimGrader license is associated with Excel projects that you're going to be doing. And if you click on the course calendar here, you will see that you have some projects due. For example, you have a project do a practice project 1 that is due on Wednesday. So you got a couple of days to get this straightened out. But you have a practice project due on Wednesday. It is not for credit. You do not have to do it. But you can do it. So, and this is for those of you who might not have worked with SimNet before. If you took Computer Science 138 with the Computer Science Department, they do use SimNet. So, if you took them, you may be familiar with it. Another thing that I want to mention about SimNet, if you have used SimNet in the last year, then your license is still good. It is good for a year or until there's a migration to a new version. So if you took SimNet, for example, even last fall, if you took a class, maybe a Computer Science 138, or you're repeating this class even, and I have a few people who might be doing that, although I'm not sure in the summer. I don't recognize anyone's name. But if you're repeating the course, then the license for SimNet is transferable. So I can transfer you to this course. I should be able to find you. So instructions related to SimNet. Notify me via email if you think you have a valid license. It's no trouble whatsoever. I'm happy to go in and take a look and see if I can locate you. And if I can, then I can assign you to this class. Okay? Let's see how many people I have. Not too many here today, but that's okay. All right. So, course calendar. And again, this is the view you should be seeing. Now, you're going to have 2 more exams, in-semester exams. So, learning modules for exam number 2 will be popping up later on today. And I'll be fleshing out learning modules for exam number 3 in the near future. So, you will see all those materialize. So let's take a look at the syllabus. Again, Introduction to Business Information Systems. This is a rigorous class, covers a broad array of topics on information systems concepts and information technology. Information technology is like the bricks and mortar of information systems. So we need to know something about more than a little something about computer hardware and software and the telecommunications that enables today's powerful network-driven computing models. The internet is absolutely very, very important in the world of business today. It is the global network infrastructure. The World Wide Web and the World Wide Web standards have been absolutely critical to the dynamic business models that we have today. We'll learn about databases and applications. We'll talk about systems that are designed around supporting decisions in various levels of the organization. We'll discuss e-commerce models. We will discuss the process known as systems development and the various development methodologies that are used today. Those methodologies have evolved over the years as technology has changed, as the tools have changed, the capabilities of developers have changed, the timeline is like everything else in life. Development cycles have gotten faster and shorter. So we'll look at that. And if we have time, we'll look at some things that are going on in terms of innovations in information systems and information technology, architecture, and infrastructure. Things like cloud computing, for example. We'll discuss actually what a cloud is. Not too many people know what a cloud is. They're familiar with the term, but they're not really, they don't know exactly what the cloud is. Prereq, again, we know what that is. If you would fill out the survey for me, one question. I want that survey filled out. Those of you who do not, I'm going to be investigating you immediately. So let's make sure we have that prerequisite. It is a 3-hour course. My office is in room 207 here in the George. I am one of the more accessible faculty here. I have a dual role. I serve as the coordinator of technology services here for the George as well. So if you have technical problems or questions with this course or something else, I'm here here to help. Office hours are going to be from 11 to 12 on Monday through Friday. So I've actually got a link here, and you should be able to log in here and you can register for an office appointment with me. I do have those reserved from 11 to 12. I also have a slot reserved for, and I need to change that. I think I've got a slot reserved for, well, I have one reserved for 1:30 to 2:30. And I know some of you have expressed concern that this class is at 1 o'clock. Well, it's at 1 o'clock today, so it may not be at 1 o'clock the rest of the summer. It's probably going to be in the afternoon. I'm going to post a survey and ask everybody what time they can meet, and I'll factor that into my decision. But it may, if anything, it'll be a little bit later on in the day, probably around 3 or 4. So it doesn't conflict with some of the other classes. Email is probably the best way to get me. Give me a day, if you will. I usually respond pretty quickly, so I'm checking email on my mobile device, like everybody else. And you see the general topics relative to the chapters of the book. The book, by the way, comes with the Connect license. So when you buy the Connect license, that includes the text. It is an ebook. The Connect exercises are 12% of your grade, so they're mandatory. I believe that's how much I have them for. Let's see. Yes, 12%. So the SimNet or LearnSmart license are required. Okay. Let's see. McGraw-Hill Connect, SimNet SimGrader 2016, and you've got links. We're using business-driven information systems. 7E is the version. Other resources, you need access to the internet. Pretty much everything is going to be delivered via the Blackboard's content management capabilities. You will go through that. That will serve as a gateway. You should be able to access your SimNet work. You should be able to access your Connect work. It will link you. You'll be able to go from Blackboard into those platforms. You need Microsoft Office 2016 Professional. Now, if you do not have that, I do not want you going out buying Microsoft Office 2016 Professional. There's an alternative for that, and I'll show you what that is in a little bit. Instructional procedures. There's going to be a lot of work where you've got your LearnSmart lessons. You're going to have, as you denote from the calendar, you're going to be pretty busy with SimNet. This is only, I've still got to flesh out the weeks 17 through 21 or 18 through 21 and 25 through 28. And Monday is the last day of class, so we actually come to class on a Monday as well. So you're going to have, at a minimum, you're going to have 8 SimNet projects. They're going to have lessons that correspond with them. So you're going to, and the deadlines for these projects are fairly hard and fast. That is something that you should be aware of now. The Connect work, it has a due date, and once that due date expires, it's still available, but you cannot submit the work for a grade. So again, it is important that you do the work. Let's see if I can. Log in to Connect. I'm logging in through a different interface. And here is the student view for this. And again, all of your work is in these SmartBook chapters. The applications exercises, those are not, that's not where your work is going to be. You're going to be doing work in the SmartBook chapters. I'll be eliminating those application exercises for the time being. I may add a few back, but right now, the majority of your Connect work is going to be with these Learn Smart lessons. So basically, it's a set of true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank questions. So as you can see, you've got due dates, 6/4, 6/5, 6/6, 6/7, 6/11. So those are the due dates when the work needs to be done. So you need to be aware of that. Now, some of you go to the menu over here, I believe, and look at the to-do area. And that's fine if you want to do that, but that's kind of a shortcut area. That's not actually the folders where all the work is. Now, how do I get back to where I was? Okay. There we go. Yeah, you go back to the class and you can see the SmartBook chapters here. That area, the to-do list, is kind of a shortcut area. So I'm not sure exactly. In other words, if you go in and do something and it doesn't show up, then let's say you let the date expire. Well, I keep the chapters out there just for you to review the information. So even though it's expired, you still have access to the questions. You just can't submit them for a grade. And that kind of confuses students because then they go through, they do them, and then they wonder why they don't have a grade for it in the grade book. So you will actually be assigned grades or results. Okay, so and I guess you run an Insight to do that. Okay, all right. So somewhere in here you have a grade book that shows up. And of course you have your ebook, which is a PDF form. So you have access to the chapter. Every point counts in this class. Okay, this is a rigorous class. There's a lot of work. We cover a lot of material. It is important that you keep up. I teach this class both online and I teach this class in a classroom. And every semester for the students who are in my classroom, I show them the correlation. And there is a gold standard statistical correlation in this class between attendance and participation in the course and how you do in it. There's a lot of material, a lot of information. The vocabulary is not an everyday vocabulary. It is very specific to the disciplines of computer science and computer information systems. So it's not words that you hear every day. You know, being able to answer or make an appropriate selection in a true, false, or a multiple choice question can and will depend at times on whether or not you know what a term means. So vocabulary is important. My exams are a combination of true, false, multiple choice, and I like short answer. I find that sometimes people who are engaged in rote memorization tend to do fairly well on true, false, multiple choice, but they kind of go blank when they have a short answer question. And they are short answer. You should be able to answer any of my short answer exams questions in 3 or 4 sentences, maybe 5 at most. It typically is a matter of do you know what the topic is, and do you know the answer to the question? Not, you should be able to give a succinct answer in a short, if no more than a paragraph, for my short answer questions. They're certainly not essay questions. Okay, so anyway, Office 2016 Professional. So lectures are going to be, you're going to have pre-recorded lectures perhaps. Sometimes I'll do pre-recorded. Sometimes I will do online. We'll have an online like we're doing now, and I'm actually recording this right now. So it's either going to be, and typically if I do pre-recorded things, it'll usually be a couple of short video segments, which the combination of them would equal a single day of content. When you see my prezzies, you'll note my prezzies are a fairly detailed. I use a platform called Prezi. This is the last time I'm going to be able to use those. Starting in the fall, I'm going to have to use something else because you cannot caption or you cannot strip the textual information out of a Prezi. And so for that reason, I'm going to have to come up with another platform. But I enjoy using that platform. The navigability of it, I think, is better than PowerPoint. It's got better action. But I'm probably going to have to go to something else rather than Prezi, because Prezi is flash days. You may have self-learning days. If I think there's enough information and the topic is simplistic enough where you can do your reading, you can do your Learn Smart lessons, you can review the content I've got. I could give you exams, little quizzes that kind of question you on what's going to be important there, so you may have those days. Now, I've already received emails about attendance. I have a policy in this class. I try to encourage attendance for the online class sessions, just to see who's out there. By the way, this environment that we're in, this is the Adobe Breeze platform. And you know what? While I'm thinking about it, let me check my email. I want to see if anyone. I had someone who called and they were a little bit confused about how to get into the system. I think I may have neglected to mention to everyone that you need to log in as a guest. And so I think some of them, yes, there we go. Anyway, I'm reading some things. Got old emails in here. I'm not sure why. Oh, that's my. I haven't checked email on this one in a long time. So, okay. So there was a question. Someone was asking about recording, so I will respond to them. Yes, we are recording this live, so they'll be able to see that. So anyway, this environment you're in, you can see it's a kind of a, they call each one of these squares pods. And so this is a typical layout. Another layout I'll have will be this one here. And that's where I will actually take attendance. I actually take attendance and you actually just indicate that you're here. You click on a yes and it uses your name. So I see most of you use the naming convention that I asked for, which is your first name underscore last initial. You're doing that so that I will recognize you. There won't be any confusion. On occasion, I have people with the same first name. It's very rare that I have people with the same first name and the same last name, even the same last initial. So, and usually there's a difference in the spelling of the first name. So that's the reason for the naming convention, because when you do check that you are actually in the class, all you're doing is selecting a yes box. And I'm checking off that you're, and I'm going in and I'm just looking at your name and going, okay, Clayton H was here, or Kayla P was here, Meredith B was here, Ashlyn G was here. So I'm just checking it off and indicating that you were there for the day. There is no penalty if you do not attend class. Now, I encourage you very strongly to attend class, not because I'm making it mandatory, and not because there are, I think it's important because if you do have questions, you can ask. There are different, you can attend class by actually going in and viewing the lectures. So that's another way to attend class. I'm going to run analysis. Now, you have to understand that I'll do it one of two ways. You can log in and I'll take the roll, and I'll take the roll at different intervals throughout the course. So you have to be online when I take roll. I'm not going to commit right now. I want to look, I'm very new to TechSmith's analysis. If I can verify that you watch the entire video, each video, I will, if I can verify that I can do that, then if I can do that when I run analysis on the lectures, because you do have to log in to using your USC Upstate username and ID when I'm disseminating information through the TechSmith platform. If I can verify that, and this is kind of new to me, so if I can verify that using digital analysis, I'll do that, and then I'll count you present that way. But I'm going to have to investigate it to make sure that I can do it. But if I can do that, I will count you present. Now, there is no penalty for not attending class, however. There's 5 points out there that I will give you it's like taking a quiz that you make 100 on. And I take that 5 points of weight from the final exam. So your final exam is normally worth 25. If you have attendance credits, that is, if you attend half or more of all online sessions, then And I'm going to change that. Now that's actually attending. I'm going to change that rule if it's related to viewing the content. So I'll be changing this syllabus in the next day or two, because I'm going to go in and look and see what kind of analytics or data is produced by the TechSmith platform. I want to see what that is, because I'm going to change the rules, because again, participation and viewing of lecture content is absolutely essential to success in this course. That's what the data says. This is not me. This is not an opinion. The data says that it's essential. People who participate actively, who view the lecture content, meet the assignments deadlines, they do well in the course. If you don't, then you're not going to do as well. So you can reduce the weight of your final exam up to 4 points, not 5, 4, by regularly attending and participating. So again, that language is going to change. I may leave it as far as attending live sessions, but as it relates to actually viewing them after the fact, it's going to be a pretty high watermark. I'm going to have an expectation that you view pretty much most of the lecture content. And I'll be denoting when you view it, that kind of stuff. So I look for patterns where it looks like people are just going through the motions, rather than actually, actively viewing content when they have free time available. You could do a research project. I had someone email me about this if you want the credit. Again, the option here is, let me be very clear, no points are deducted. Basically, if you have attendance credit, it's like having a quiz that's worth 5%. Your final exam is worth 20%. On the quiz, you've got a grade of 100. On the final exam, your grade is going to be dependent on you and how well you have prepared. If you have no attendance credit, your final exam is worth 25%. And it's all dependent on you and how well you have prepared. If you make a 90 or better on your final exam, attendance credit is virtually meaningless. Because remember, all you're doing is getting 100 on a 5%. So, it literally translates to 0.2 points or something like that. It's not very much at all. Because you've almost scored, if you score a 90 or better, you've almost scored 100 on the entire category. So, don't be distraught about the attendance. It's credit. It is not you don't lose it. It's just an incentive. I like to call it an incentive. I do take the roll, and it will vary when I take the roll during class. So don't ask to be added to the roll after the fact. If you were at the refrigerator getting something to drink while I was taking roll, well, you missed it. So it is kind of important that you're there when I'm doing roll. Since classes are 2 hours and 15 minutes, then we will take a break during that time. And because I think 2 hours and 15 minutes is an awful lot to ask people to maintain attention, particularly when you're looking at a computer screen. So we will take a break during that time. You have the option of writing for that attendance credit, although quite candidly, in a condensed semester like we have in the summer, this is a pretty intense course for the amount of information covered, the information that you need to absorb, the information that you need to assimilate, and that you're going to be responsible for on the exams. Doing a 5-page research paper is just a little more work than you need when it comes to the exam content. plus the SimNet work plus the Connect work. Okay, so I don't recommend it. If you're going to do the paper, you need to start now. And as you can see, I've got a list of topics there. Well, I thought I had a list of topics. Maybe I'll need to correct that. There should be I have a list of topics. I'll make them available if somebody wants to, is interested in doing the research. I'm not trying to discourage research. It's just another thing you've got to do in a class that's going to be pretty busy to begin with. Communication, as I mentioned, email. I usually also instant messaging. I need to post that because I do on my desktop. I use Skype, and we have business Skype, so I'll post I am available on Skype as well. So instant messaging works. I need to add that to the syllabi, so that'll be another change. Because I like, I'll be available in instant messaging if you need me. Email, again, try to, don't expect an immediate response. I'm usually pretty good about responding fairly quickly. But allow for a 24-hour period, unless it's just something that's absolutely critical. If it's something you need an immediate response for, to, go ahead and email me again. If you would, in the email subject line, because I'll be filtering your emails, type in the email, and you see it says Management 290. Not O3W, it should be O2W. This is section O2W. So Management 290, O2W, and I'll be filtering I'll actually just be filtering for that string, Management 290, O2W. Spaces in between the department, MGMT 290, and then O2W. That's 02W, not O. That's 02W. And that tells me, of course, that it's from someone in the class. All right, SimNet. Now, we're going to go at SimNet. You can access SimNet from here. You also can right-click, open in a new tab or a new window. There's my new window. Okay. And I've already got my login credentials. Now, for those of you who, again, if you've already used SimNet, if you've used SimNet in the last year at the university with the computer science department taking 138, or if you're repeating this class, then you have a SimNet account. Let me know via email, and I'm happy to transfer it. Don't buy the software again. There's no point. That's one of the reasons we're using SimNet. We have partnered with the computer science department to try to save students money. We want you doing this application work, but if we can have you working in computer science and then turn around and have you working in 290 using the same platform, that saves you money, and you're still getting the valuable application work at the same time. If you don't have an account, click on, well, it depends on what you're going to do. If you have a code that you bought at the bookstore, or you want to use Courtesy Access. Now, If you read my message yesterday, you know that Courtesy Access is a 14-day license, and when it expires, you have to license that account. Otherwise, when you renew, and you can actually renew your Courtesy Access again with a new account name, I believe, but of course it's not connected to any of your work. When your account expires with a Courtesy license, everything you've done disappears. It's no longer accessible to me. I can't see it. So there's no way to make it through this course with a Courtesy license. I'm not going to collect the grades until the end of the semester. I'm going to download it. I have the ability in SimNet to go in and download everything in a spreadsheet. I'm going to organize my spreadsheet. I'm going to enter some formulas in. I'm going to calculate your weighted average based on the information in those columns at the time that I download it. I do not collect them during different intervals. If you have some sort of unique situation regarding license resources, let me know. I might can work with the book rep. I haven't met the new book rep. I've got a new one now. Joni Thompson, who was our old book rep, she's moved on to other. They've kind of split her territory up, I think. I haven't seen her in a while. All right, so anyway, if you have a code or you need a Courtesy license, this is your route. Do you attend University of South Carolina Upstate? Yes. I would not use my existing SimNet username if I was going in. Let's say you did SimNet. I'm assuming you're going in here because you don't have a valid license now. You haven't used SimNet in the last year. Let's say you used SimNet 3 years ago and for some reason you remember your username. I would not use it. I would just make up a new one. Add a couple of numbers to it. First name, last initial, 18, whatever. Just make up a username and don't confuse SimNet by using an old account. You've got a EULA agreement, end user license agreement. Click next. Be sure here that you sign up. You've got a number of Management 290 classes here. This is the Management 290 Summer 2018. I need to close those other sections. I'm not sure why they're open, but certainly do not sign up for the computer science class in the summer. This is Management 290 Summer 18. And from there, you're going to click next. Now, this next phase is where you either enter in your registration code or you're going to check the box, activate a 14-day Courtesy Access license. Okay, if that's what your intent is. Once you activate that license, you got 14 days, and at any time you can go in there and apply your code and register it after your account is. So I encourage you now, if it's going to take you a week or two to get your funds, then go ahead and do your Courtesy. You can kind of time things. You don't actually need access to it until about Wednesday. About Wednesday, you can activate it, do your practice project, then go from there, and that'll get you 2/3 of the way through the class before you actually have to, pay for the license. But again, I'm not collecting this information until the end, and one of the things you don't want to do, this category, the SimNet work, is worth like 22% of your grade. So one of the things you don't want to do is just throw points out. The other thing I don't know about is I might not be able to, I've never tried it. an innovative student might say, well, I don't want to buy a license. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till halfway through the course, and then I'm going to activate a courtesy license. You might do that. What I cannot tell you is I cannot tell you whether or not I can download those grades or not. I haven't actually tried to export those out, so that's really not a good solution either. I wouldn't do that. The reality is, there are 2 licenses you have to buy for this course. Yes, they are expensive, but this is, again, it is really the only systems technology course in the business college. So that's one of the reasons we have those licenses. So anyway, either check your box or put in your code and move from there. Okay, so, all right, so as a student, this is what you see. And you'll select the course. And this is going to grow in size. Need to rename that project. Let me go ahead and do that right now. (2-4), where is that? There it is. Okay, let's see. And I needed to edit. Okay, I've got the class assigned. And that's what I needed right there. This is Excel Project 4. Shouldn't have been that long word. There we go. Okay. All right. So that should look just a little different once we refresh this. And it does. It's now Excel Project 4. And Project 10 is going to disappear. I'm not sure why that's there. It's something I tried to copy from one course to another, but that one's actually going to disappear. Your work for Wednesday, June 6th, and today is the 4th, so it's due on June 6th. And the way the projects are actually set up, there's 2 pieces to them. You have a lesson, which if we click on the Excel lesson, you see that what you have is you have an exercise. You have a number of exercises. We're going to be opening a workbook, a macro-enabled workbook. We're going to be applying themes. We're going to apply number formats. We're going to merge cells. We're going to split and merge cells. We're going to be inserting some data using autofill. Really simple stuff. So you click Take Lesson, and all of this occurs on the server, okay? You're in a browser. Everybody, I'm sure, knows what a browser is. A web browser is a type of application we use to navigate content that's being disseminated by web servers over the internet or over an intranet. An intranet being a private network that uses web-based platforms for disseminating application content. So, if you're familiar with SimNet, then you know all about these. I will tell you that the lessons are kind of browser sensitive. for example, I'm using Chrome. I recommend using Chrome or Firefox. The lessons, I believe, utilize Java, and they do seem to be Java version sensitive. There are basically two versions of Java in the world. There's the Sun Microsystem version of Java, and then there is the Microsoft version of Java. And these lessons do not like Internet Explorer. They don't like they don't like the Microsoft version of Java. So, and actually, I think these lessons use HTML5 now, because for those of you who may have an interest in programming, you know now that Chrome doesn't actually support Java anymore. There's some vulnerabilities in Java that in the Java machine that have kind of moved the Google, which is the author of Chrome and Firefox, away from Java. So anyway, we're going to open a macro-enabled workbook. So there's 3 elements. The only one, and you actually get graded for this, and you have multiple attempts to do it, and there's no reason whatsoever everybody shouldn't score a 100 on all the lessons, because there's no restriction in the amount of attempts to do it. They do expire at a certain point. In other words, you have the deadline, and after the deadline, they're still accessible, but you can't do them for a grade. But you can do them just for the knowledge and to review as many times as you want. So you do have to meet that deadline. So there are deadlines with the assignments in this class. So that's something that you need to pay particular attention to. You need to log into, during the week, you need to log in to Connect, and you need to log into SimNet on a regular basis to see what's coming up, what's due, so that you don't miss application and LearnSmart lesson assignment deadlines. So show me. And
when you open a workbook that contains macros, the message bar appears below the ribbon with the security warning that macros have been disabled. Click the Enable Content button to enable macros and other active content. If you do not want this warning to appear every time the workbook is opened, you can make the workbook a trusted document. Click the File tab. On the Info page, click the Enable Content button and select Enable All Content to make this workbook a trusted document.
Okay, so you've completed the task. So close to show me. And then let me try. Now you can do guide me, and there are written instructions for doing this. So it says enable the active content in this workbook for this session. So you can click enable, and you indicate that it's correct. And always enable this workbook's active content by making it a trusted document. So you go to Info, and you see I clicked the wrong thing, so it counted it. So what I'm trying to do is illustrate that this is kind of unforgiving. You have to get it correct, and there you have it. So we've gotten that correct. So we've finished that, and you move on to the next thing. And the next thing, of course, is let's apply a number format. So again, show me.
To apply number formats to your worksheet, first select the cells you want to format. Next, on the Home tab, in the Number group, click the button for the number format you want. To change the number of decimal places that appear, click the Increase Decimal or Decrease Decimal button. For other common number formats, Click the number format arrow above the buttons in the number group to display the number format menu.
Okay, so show me there. All right. Oh, by the way, if you have a question in this view, the Breeze view, the Adobe Breeze view, down at the bottom, you see there's a Q&A box. If you would, type your question in that box, and it will pop up. I will see it. It's anonymous. No one else sees the question. It doesn't get all scrunched up like it does in the chat window. And I can kind of, when I see it, it kind of cues me, okay, somebody doesn't understand something. And I can answer the question at the appropriate interval as I'm going over this material. So use that Q&A box. That's what it's for. It's anonymous questions, and I typically leave it anonymous. I don't indicate who's asked it. I just address the question and move on. So there's no such thing as a bad question. If you don't understand something, by all means, make use of that. Make use of that Q&A box down at the bottom. All right, so let me try, and this is the last one we'll do here. You apply the accounting number format to the selected cells. You see that they're already selected. And you go down here, and there's the accounting. And I'm going to advance to the next step. Modify the format so that no decimal places are visible. And you're going to decrease, and up here, these are the decrease or increase decimal places. And by the way, you have to do this specifically. For example, there are other ways to decrease the decimal places. You can format the cells here and click OK. Now, it let me do that. I don't know why. I will tell you that sometimes that's what you call a contextual menu. That's the left click mouse button. And you can go in and format cells that way, and clearly I could reduce the number of decimal places in the contextual menu option. Sometimes the lessons will allow you to do things a different way than they show you, and then other times absolutely not. There's more than one way to do things in Excel. There's more than one way to format cells. You can use the menu, or you can use your mouse. And the contextual menus premised on what you want to do. So sometimes it supports it, sometimes it doesn't. The lessons are fairly inflexible, I will tell you that. Okay, apply the currency format to the selected cells. And finally, so we'll go to currency on the prices worksheet tab. Oh, wait a minute. On the prices worksheet. I'm on the wrong worksheet. Okay. There we go. Currency. Very good. Okay. So done with that one. And so as you can see, let's see, merging and splitting cells. Well, no, that's not what I wanted to do. And you can see I got a checkbox. I've got a checkbox for opening a macro enable workbook and a checkbox for applying themes. So once you get checkboxes for all of these activities, then you've got credit. You've got 100 on this. I'm going to go ahead and close this window, yes. And as you can see, there are my checkboxes. And so this is another view where you can actually go into each one of these on an individual basis from this view. So I'm going to navigate back to assignments. And now the project is different. Okay, the project is different, and we're going to take a little break. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll work on a practice project. Okay? Do I have any questions? If I have any questions, uh, again, enter them in the Q&A box. I'll be back here in about 10 minutes. It's 2:11 now, so about, let's say, 2:25. Okay, just had somebody email me. I want to reiterate this thing about the attendance credit. Again, please do not get hung up on the attendance credit thing. If that happens, I may do away with it altogether because it's really a very small thing. Again, if you attend half of all the sessions live, and I make no commitment right now, I've got to look at the analytics data about being able to take attendance for you and see if you're looking at it, if you're viewing it after the fact. If not, it's not a big deal, okay? Your attendance credit is like taking a quiz that's 100 points, okay? And let's say you score a 70 on your final examination. Okay. All right. Should be back on the screen again. You should be looking at Excel. So attendance credit's 100 points, 5%. This is 20% now with attendance credit. Okay, so if you take this and multiply it times this, that's 5 points equal to this multiplied times this. That's 14 points. That is a total of 19 points. If you don't earn attendance credit, then your exam of 70 is worth 25%. And that is equal to 17.5 points. However, do make a 76 on your final exam and it's 19 points. It's 6 points on your final exam is all it is. Okay? It helps you the lower you earn on your final exam. My advice is don't aspire to earning low on your exams. Prepare diligently for your exams before going into them. They'll be your in-semester exams will be online. Going in and letting you know your final exam will be in a classroom. Or you may take it in the testing center, or you may have it proctored somewhere. If some of you are off-site somewhere, I actually had someone who emailed me about this. You can have it proctored I have someone who's in another country taking the class. You can have it proctored at a university. You have to put me in touch with the individual at the university. I have to be given contact information, and then I will do exercise due diligence and verify that it's a valid proctor site. And I will get in contact with the individual. I will set everything up. That is, those are your options. But your final exam is actually delivered in a classroom. But I just wanted to show you, this is, we'll do the old merge and center. This is with attendance credit. And this is without it. 6 more points on your final exam is the same thing as attendance credit. The contribution is the same. So there's an incentive there, but again, if you prepare diligently for your exams, it's not that I don't want you to attend. I'd like for you to attend, but I understand that some of you have work schedules and things that don't allow you to do that, even though we haven't established a time yet. But it is, in the grand scheme of things, a small amount. It can make a difference. I have seen attendance credit help students, but I've also seen good exam scores help students. So in other words, it's kind of a, it if you spend time working on the exams, the ironic thing is typically the students who do well on the exams are also the ones who attend class. So they're kind of doing both things that they need to do. But if you're someone who cannot attend class, then spend the time you need outside of class preparing for the examinations. And be sure that you are watching the lectures, okay? Because that's one more time you're going to hear it. Hopefully I can bring some context, some examples that will help clarify things for you. But again, overall, this course is one of those where it moves at a pretty fast pace. And in addition to that, it covers a lot of material. So it helps to hear it. It helps to hear the information. Okay. So any questions on attendance credit? If you do have them, put them down in the Q&A box down there. All right, so the practice project. The practice project, you're actually downloading files to your workstation, and you're going to do the work on your workstation. And remember, you've got to have this is where you have to have Office 2016. It didn't matter when you do the lessons, it doesn't matter if you have Office 2016. All you have to have is an appropriate browser. The appropriate version of Office is running on the server. Now here, though, you're going to download this file. You're going to download an instruction file. And I'm opening it, and you can see it's a PDF file. And you're going to download a start file, and in some of the others, you've got maybe have a data file. So you may have a start, you'll certainly have an instruction file, you'll have a start file, and you have a data file. The optional download, the best practices, you can download those and look at them, but they're really not applicable. The instructions are where you get your instructions on what to do. So in this case, the instruction covers what's in the project. You're going to open and save a workbook. You're going to change the theme of the workbook. You're going to edit and format data. You're going to merge and center information. You're going to take a number of cells and merge and center them. You're going to use a sum function, and you're going to fill information down automatically. Now, keep in mind, you're going to be doing this on a spreadsheet, and there's no software agent that's watching you do this. So when you're working in Excel itself, you can use all the different ways of doing things that you want to do it. It's kind of up to you, but there's no, ultimately what's going to be measured when you submit your work is what's going to be measured is it correct? If they told you to format cell D6 and give it a certain format and then make sure the value 1950 was in it, then the grading software is going to be looking at the correct version of your work. There's a solutions file. I'll download that in just a minute. It's going to be looking at the solutions file, and it's going to be comparing the solutions file to your file, and anything that doesn't match, and it has an assigned rubric item for, and it's going to be taking points off of that. But it doesn't matter how you do it. If you want to use the right mouse button to format your cells, that's fine. If you want to use the menu option, that's fine. If you want to use keyboard shortcuts, that's fine as well. There are keyboard shortcuts for getting the format menu option. So it doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is that the cell is formatted Times New Roman or Arial or whatever it is. It's formatted as a number with 0 decimal points, and it's the number it's supposed to be. Doesn't matter how you get to that solution, because again, you're doing your work on your own machine. Now, say you don't have Office 2016. What you can use is you can use the Spartan Green Sky technology, virtualization technology. The University of South Carolina Upstate uses a product called VMware, which is a virtualization platform. It's called a virtual machine, where it creates multiple instances of Windows machines running on a server, and you can access these with your University of South Carolina Upstate account. And you can access it at spartangreensky.uscupstate.edu. And now you'll notice I've got a page here, and you got two options. You can install a client. You can install a VMware Horizon client on your machine. And it looks like this. And you click on the link, and I'm going to log in, and you see I've got a number of desktops to choose from. As a student, yours will probably vary. Mine has got a faculty staff desktop. I'm going to pull up a Spartan Green desktop, which is probably the one you would pull up. So I'm going to pull that up. And so this is what it actually looks like. And it looks just like a computer. And the computer is running Office 2016. So when I pull up Excel, which is the application you would be doing the work in, and let's see, info. Viewer options. I think I can go to save as. Browse. And Excel workbook. Anyway, this is actually Office 2016 that's on this machine. Now, usually I can find that under info if I want to know what version it is. Stop, yeah, so forth. There we go. But anyway, we are running Office 2016 throughout the. There we go. Office Professional 2016. So that's the version. So if you are a Mac user, most of these projects are Mac compliant. But on occasion, you may run into issues. When you get into the more advanced projects, which will be like projects 8 or 9, if we do 9, occasionally you run into issues with Mac. Even though they say all of these projects are Mac compliant, I'm not sure why. So one of the options is to use the Spartan Green Sky desktop. So you can, in this case, we're working on yeah, there it is. I'm looking for my little toolbar at the top. And you can connect a USB device Now keep in mind that you're plugging your USB device into your computer somewhere, and it's connecting it to a machine that's actually running in the administration building on the main campus in the basement. So it's a virtual USB connection. But you can work off of a flash drive and work on one of these machines. And the reason I say this is because occasionally students run into problems like with the instructions. They're not quite the same. They need to do stuff, and they're looking at their Mac, and they don't see that menu option. Mac is always, not because there's anything wrong with Mac, but they're always behind. Microsoft always, in terms of support, Macintosh, the Mac version of Office is always a little bit behind the Windows version. It just kind of is what it is. So you can use your Mac, but occasionally if you run into issues, you'll probably want to use this desktop. Now, this is one way to access it. Another way to access it is, here's the interface again. Just go through the browser. So I'm going to pull up the HTML access. I'm going to enter in my username. And it even remembers my password. Or maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That may be the wrong password, but we'll see. Yeah, it is. I've changed it. Okay, so there we go. Same thing. You'll see my desktops. Click on the Spartan Green Sky. The only difference is we're actually working within a browser. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this and proceed. You can go ahead and proceed. This is a university platform. Chrome is giving me is giving me some information because we're going to do. You actually do a VP, what's called a VPN, here between the browser and the VMware server, a virtual private network, which means it's encrypted. So we're going to go ahead and proceed, and we will pull up the desktop again, and now I'm in the browser. So this is the option for you if you don't have Office 2016. Of course, you have to have network access. Don't worry about updating Java. That's not really an issue. And you have to have network access, but this is an option for doing the work that you need to do on these projects. So do not go out and buy Office 2016. Okay, so I'm going to download the start file. I'm getting away from my VM now. And I'll log out of this. There we go. So here's the start file, and you open it up. And let me close this. Okay, there we go. And there's our start file called Blue Lake Sports. And we're going to do a few things here. So it says enable the editing button. So we've done that. And then the file will be named automatically to include your name. And it is Brian Smith, Blue Lake Sports 01 Alts. I'm going to click Save. Now, you need to know where your file is. If you want to save it on your flash drive, then you need to have the drive mounted, and you need to be able to find it. So mine's actually in the Downloads folder, so I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to do a little work. Not a lot. I'm just going to do a few things. Apply the facet theme to the worksheet. And you do themes, I believe, under page layouts. And there you have it. Okay. And then you're going to okay, it's actually applied, so we're good. We're going to edit worksheet data, edit the title in A2 to display monthly sales by department. A2. Okay. Then we're going to edit cell D6 to 1950s. So instead of 2250, we're changing that to 1950. And then we're going to select A1 through F2. Okay. And then we're going to click the alignment launcher and click the horizontal arrows. So we want it to be horizontal. Okay. We want it to be horizontal. And let's see. Choose center across selection. Okay. Okay. Select delete row 8. So we're deleting row 8 for some reason. I guess fishing is out. Whoops, I did an insert, so I've got to take that out. So fishing goes. Okay. And then we're going to fill a handle. We're going to select cell B3, and then we're going to we're going to complete the series to week 4 in column E. Okay. So, and if you look at these columns, they should have changed their numbering, and they did. All right, so anyway, I'm going to save this file. We'll do a submission, and we are not anywhere near finished, but just to show you. Once we get finished with the project, then we're going to upload the file. And you've got a button that says upload my file, and you got a button that says grade my file. Now, upload my file, I guess you upload if you want to save it there, and then you can download the submitted file again. So you can actually upload it, go home, and then download it again, or you can just keep it on a USB drive. I'd keep it on a USB drive. You could also upload it as a backup. So I'm going to go to downloads where my file is, and there it is. And no, I'm not ready. And so when you upload the file, you see this link. You see the current file. It says Brian Smith, Blue Lake Sports.01 Alt XLS. I can open that file. I can download it. It's on the server. I can download it and work on it some more and then upload it again. So you've got that option. So you put it on, and by the way, this server is in a cloud. It's specific to your account. You're not going to lose it. So if you're working on it on campus or something, you can upload it, save it, or you can, again, save it on some kind of personal storage device as well. Once you've got it the way you want, you're going to grade your file. And it's going to grade, and I'm not going to do very well on this one because we didn't do a lot of work at all. So as you can see, I got 20%. I got 4 out of 20. And then it tells you what you missed. Now that's important because you have 2 attempts at this. You get to do a second attempt. Every one of these projects is set up with 2 attempts. And now what you need to do, though, in order to avail yourself of those 2 attempts, you need to be sure that you start and finish your project with enough time so that you can submit it again. As you've seen, all these assignments have deadlines. So Excel projects, practice project, and here's the way they're set up. So project 1 is due on June the 7th. Well, you can also submit it on June the 8th. It will deduct 10% if you submit it on June the 8th. It's set up that way. But you actually have an extra day with a 10% deduction. So if you're not able to get them on any attempt on June the 7th, you're out of town, you're on vacation, whatever, and you submit it on June the 8th and let's say you get everything correct, you'll make a 90. If you score a 90, then you'll make an 81. And so forth. It deducts 10%. If you submit it on, if you don't have a issue with the time, if you want to submit it on time and you want 2 attempts, you've got to give yourself enough time. So if you start working on your first iteration of it at 11:30, odds are pretty good you're not going to get your second attempt in on time. Your second attempt, if it's after 11:59 p.m. that evening, it's going to deduct 10% from your second attempt. So give yourself enough time, if possible, to do both attempts by the deadline on Sunday or whatever day it is, June 7th or whatever day it is. Give yourself time to avail yourself of both attempts. I always see students not do well, and this is particularly true the further you get along in these projects, the more complicated they become, the more functions are involved, the more complexity is involved, and invariably you really need that first attempt and you need the feedback so you can go back and revise it and improve your score or perfect your score, either one. So I always see students, there's a number of students who, they don't start this thing until 20 minutes before the deadline. They get it done, or they start it an hour before the deadline. They only have time for 1 attempt, and that's all. Again, if you don't do well on the first one, and even if you have to start it on the next day, do it the second time. Yes, it will deduct 10%, but if your first score was a 40, a 90 is a lot better than a 40. You can still take the information that it gives you. What did you do wrong? What did you do correct? Make corrections, and then submit your second iteration. Okay? Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. So you've got the lessons, you've got the projects. The lessons are required. The lessons, if you look at the syllabi, you will note there is a weight for the lessons. And the reason for that is, if I did not weight them, people would not do them, and I would be getting questions about functionality that is covered in the lessons. I've already been there. I know it for a fact. I know that's how it worked. So I apply a weight of 3% to the lessons. It's not a lot, but there's no reason whatsoever that you shouldn't get 100 on every one of those lessons. The lessons are due the final day that you can submit the projects. So if a project is due on the 7th of June and you can submit it late on the 8th, the lessons are due on the 8th. The lessons will remain accessible even after they're due, but you cannot submit them for a grade beyond the due date. Okay? And unfortunately, I don't have the ability to extend the lessons for a 10% deduction or whatever like I can the project. It just doesn't work that way. So those are your SimNet lessons. So your big assignment today is to get registered for these applications, familiarize yourself with them, improve your comfort level. Also, you need to read Business Plug-in 1, which is kind of a business basics chapter, not a lot of system stuff. It's the 3 common forms of business, talks about the different departments within an organization, discusses some basic financial statements, stuff like that. And you've got a nice PowerPoint plug-in that you can review as well. So that's plug-in 1 today is your assignment, reading assignment. You also have a Learn Smart lesson associated with that, so you need to do that as well. Again, the SimNet, if you can't register for it immediately because cost is an issue, in other words, if I'm prioritizing, register for Connect, and if you need to delay SimNet for whatever reason, you need a courtesy license for 14 days, just sign up for the courtesy license for SimNet, and then you can formalize the license later on. And SimNet, your first project is not due until Thursday, so you can actually delay signing up for SimNet until Thursday. But I want to reiterate, this class there's a lot of work involved, a lot of material. Each one of these rubric items is important. For you, the student, you do not want to give up points on any of these rubric items at all. So certainly not on the Connect assignments and the SimNet license. Between those two, those are worth 35% of your grade. The other 65% of your grade is for exams. And as I mentioned, your exams, your 3 semester exams, and there will be 3, 1 each week, each Tuesday. Your 3 semester exams are going to be delivered online. Your final exam will be in a classroom. No notes, no materials, no nothing. So you're going to have to take the final exam in a classroom, or you can take it at a testing center. Typically in the classroom, it's going to be in room 250 here in the George. I don't believe there's another class in there at that time. I will get that information on the course calendar as soon as I can, where the exam is, what time it will be, that kind of thing. Again, I'm kind of optional on that exam. If you're out of the country, I'll work with you on when to take it. I prefer you take it in a proctored area. Worst case scenario, I could award you an incomplete and you can take the exam when you return in the fall for the fall semester. But that's going to be kind of disadvantageous for you then. The material's not going to be fresh. You will have a month and a half will have passed. I think it's probably better if you take it at the scheduled time and that we work out some sort of proctoring solution for you. The information on the Prezis, and this is, when I say Prezi, this is what I mean. Most chapters are associated with Prezis. So let's take a look at plugin 2. And here is the Prezi plugin. And you can expand this. So this information is what I call primary material. This chapter, chapter 2, covers business processes. We talk about business process improvement, business process reengineering. We discuss how information systems or information technology is used to augment or enhance business processes to improve the organization's ability to collect and interpret and evaluate information, to have information-driven decisions. So this is primary material. The exams cover primary material. Excel work is not going to be on the examinations. There will be no SimNet content on the exams. The SimNet exercises themselves are essentially the assessment of how you're doing with the Excel work. I also do not spend much lecture time at all on SimNet unless a student requests it. If you begin working on a project and you don't understand how to do something, if you will reach out to me through the discussion forum, and I'll actually create another discussion forum related to Excel projects. If you will reach out to me through the discussion forum or email, either one, I'm happy to create a little. I'll either do one of two things. I'll devote some of the lecture to covering that functionality, that feature, that Excel operation that you don't understand, or I'll create a little tutoring video, or I'll point you to something that's already been done. I would encourage you to avail yourself of the web. Excel is the predominant analytical tool used in business today, not because it's the best thing, but simply because it has been out there for so long. It is just still the most used analytical tool today. People move data into Excel and doing the analytics with it. They massage data before they move it into a database. They use Excel's advanced function features to perform operations on columns. They combine, maybe it's just a mailing list. You want to combine the first name and the last name into one string. You can do that in Excel. Has a nice little feature for doing it, actually. So it's still the number one analysis tool today. Modeling tool as well. So there's just tons and tons of information on the internet regarding Excel functionality. So if I'm working with SimNet and I want to know how to do something, and I'm looking at my instruction sheet, and I see merge and center, I see the term sum, fill, then that's what I'm going to be, and I don't know what that means. I'm going to be looking for keywords in those skills covered in this project. Or language I'm going to be looking at the language in the instruction. Use AutoSum. What does AutoSum mean? I'm going to be looking up AutoSum. I'm going to be looking up, if it tells me to format borders, I'm going to type formatting and borders in Excel. You will just pull up a plethora of different instructions. Now, I'm not saying everything is correct, but YouTube is just overrun almost with Excel instruction video content. So you got plenty of options as video. You can also, by the way, I don't know, for those of you who may not be aware, but every Office application has a help function. Does anybody know what the shortcut key is to access the help function in Office? Anyone? I'm kind of dating myself. You hit the F1 key. You hit the F1 key, then there's your help function. And it actually accesses an online database. So very robust help functions. I have answered so many questions using Excel simply by using the help function. I know it sounds absurd, but a lot of people don't bother to utilize it for some reason. So avail yourself of that. All right. So, back to the exams. Okay. So, there are two metrics you have to meet, and we will talk about metrics in Chapter 4 as they relate to IT, but you have two metrics that you have to meet a minimum value for in this class in order to pass it. You have to have, this is a 200 level class, so a D, and I'm trying to change that, but a D is actually a passing grade for a 200 level class in the business college. You don't want to aspire to a D, but a D is a passing grade. A D is a grade of 59.5 to 67.499, etc. Saying 495 and above. And then anything between that and 69.5 is a D plus. So I do award D pluses in this class. D plus, of course, would be 1.5 points. A C would be 2. A D is 1. So a D is an adequate grade. You have to have an overall weighted average based on the weighting scheme. That's exam 1, exam 2, final exam, exam 3, final exam. I would point out that your lowest exam score only counts 10%. I don't care which. That is your 3 semester exams. The lowest score you have of those is 10%. I float that percentage to that low score. So whichever one you do the worst on, whether it's exam 1 or exam 3, that one's only going to be worth 10%. Your final exam's worth 22%. And that can be reduced by that 4 points. Okay? So it can actually be knocked down to 18. So your final exam can actually be knocked down to 18 with attendance credit. But if you don't earn attendance credit, just score 76 instead of 70, and the net effect is basically the same. Your SimLet lessons, again, all of this totals 100 points. Don't want to give any of those points away. If you have some sort of difficulty with SimNet or licensing or finance or something, let me know. We'll see what we can do. I can't make any promises, but I can certainly reach out to the book rep. You got to have a weighted average of 59.5 or better. You also must have a weighted average of 59 or 0.5 or higher on your top 3 exam scores. Doesn't matter which ones they are. And by the way, it is not a weighted average. It is simply exam score number 1, number 2, and number 3. Evenly distributed. You know, you score a 65 on one, you score a 70 on the next one, and you score a 72 on the next one, and I average those two numbers together. And whatever that number is must be higher than 59.5. This second requirement is in addition to the minimum weighted average requirement. It's already been tested, let me tell all of you. I've had a student challenge it because I had a student one time who had a weighted average of 64 on their overall performance because they did really, really well on their SimNet work. They were just marvelous. But they had a failing average on their top 3 exam scores. They had a 56 average on their top 3 exam scores. They scored about the same on every one of their exams, even their final. And they failed the class. They challenged it. It went to the faculty, and it didn't go any further. If you challenge something in a syllabi, it has to go in front of a business school faculty. It didn't go any further, and if the faculty doesn't move it forward, then going to the dean or someone's not an option. So again, up front, 2 metric requirements. It's not really a high metric. You should be able to have a passing average on your top 3 exam scores. Technically, that actually means you could have a failing average on all your exams, as long as your top 3 exam scores were above a 59.5. And I've actually had someone who did that. If you averaged all of their exams, they had a failing average on their exam scores, but they had a passing average on their top 3. So their failing average was because they had a very low score on 2 of their exams, and of course one of those exam scores was negated by the top 3 number. So anyway, just wanted to be upfront with that. 2 metrics, a weighted average of 59.5 or higher, and a top 3 exam score of 59.5 or higher. You see the grading scale. There will be a couple of changes in the syllabus as soon as I have time to investigate whether or not what kind of metrics I get out of TechSmith as far as being able to discern who's viewing the videos and who's not. I will let you know. But if it looks like that's going to be complicated, I'm probably not going to do it. I want to see how simple it's going to be, and whether or not I see any kind of large loopholes that people can drive through. Again, there's really no penalty for not attending. I do encourage you to attend, and certainly I encourage you to view the videos. But at the same time, it's you can all you have to do is diligently prepare for those exams, and you can raise that exam score 5 or 6 points, and the net effect is essentially the same. Okay, you've got your assignments. Register for SimNet, register for Connect. You need to do Connect Learn Smart Lesson 1 today. It will expire tonight at 11:59 p.m. You need to read Business Plug-in 1 on business basics. And if you have time, go ahead and practice. Do the practice exercise, the SimNet practice exercise. And of course, you've got other work that you can do as well. You've got your learning modules associated with Exam 1, so you can work ahead. You've got options. You can work ahead on SimNet. You can work ahead on Connect. You can work ahead on reading in preparation for the forthcoming exam next Tuesday. Any questions? I've been seeing some emails pop up, so I'm not going to answer those live right now. I'll be sending those responses when I get back to my classroom, to my office. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take the roll. Don't enter anything in yet. Thank you. Very good. All you have to do is click yes, I'm here. Okay? It doesn't actually give you any feedback, so all you have to do is select yes. Okay, everyone. The final thing, I will create a survey and ask everyone what time is the most convenient meeting time for them, and you may select the one. I'll probably ask you to select 2 that, work with your schedule. And, if you would fill that out today or tomorrow, we'll schedule another meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock since I don't have the data, but I'll look for that announcement in the next hour or so. I'll have that survey out there. The other thing, be sure and go in and fill the survey out regarding whether or not you've taken the prerequisites for the course. I have to submit that information to Miss Beverly Johnson, who works in our office, and she takes that information and evaluates who's in compliance with prerequisites